Greetings, campers, and welcome back to another Camp Legend Lorcana video with your boy Gibbles and Bits. The Shimmering Sky set is officially here. We've got the cards in our hands, and we've got a lot of awesome new options for deck building that are popping up new archetypes all over the place. One of the existing archetypes, though, that I do think got bolstered through this set is the Sapphire Ramp decks. If you are unfamiliar with how these decks operate or interested in playing them, or maybe you're just a new player, then this video is for you because I'm going to be doing a low to the ground new player guide to Sapphire ramp decks, utilizing some of the existing tools we've got from prior sets and the new tools, some new characters that we got that open up the deck variety and deck building of these decks. You want to optimally utilize the ink that you are jamming into your inkwell to get out those high cost value units in the most efficient way possible, and I'm here to help you do that. Okay, we're going to do a top-down visualization now, some of the early turns of these Sapphire ramp decks. We're going to do two demonstrations. One is going to be ramping on the even ink counts, and the other is going to be ramping on the odd ink counts. Both are viable ways to play, but you'll see the differences in the two strategies. The one commonality you'll see between the two strategies is that they are both trying to maximize all of the available ink that you have on board to leverage getting to those high value, high cost cards turns before your opponent does. That is the way that you're going to win through these decks is by playing out better value units on earlier turns than your opponent can access because they're only inking one card per turn. So we're going to start out doing the even ramp ink counts. You'll see we've got our nice board in front of us with our zones. Hopefully this will be helpful for our new players. Our cards in play are going to be up here, our inkwell down here. This is going to represent our hand size, and I'm going to do my best to remove and add cards as we play cards into our inkwell or into play, and drawing for each turn from our deck here in the top right. So to start off with our even ink ramp, turn one looks a bit basic because there really isn't a whole lot of inking options on turn one. To try to ramp, it really kind of starts to kick off in turn two and turn three for both strategies. Turn one is going to be the same relatively for both. We'll go ahead and place a card from our hand into our inkwell. And then we are going to play one of these two cards, Popsicle or Fortisphere. Sapphire decks love to play items because they do have a lot of synergy with them. And you'll see how we can utilize our items in later turns. Popsicle and Fortisphere are both nice items to play because the top ability on both of them say, when you play this item, you may draw a card. It's important to try to keep our hand robust and plentiful if we can, just because we're going to be placing a lot of cards from our hand into our inkwell. We might get a bit thin at times, but both the more common Sapphire decks, Sapphire Ruby and Sapphire Steel, have ways to replenish their hand throughout the game, utilizing some very key cards. So we'll remove a card as if we played the Popsicle, and then we're going to add a card to our hand as if we are utilizing the ability from the Popsicle. On the next turn, we'll ready our ink. We will draw for turn. We'll ink for turn. And now we've got a couple different options of cards that we can play on turn two, just to highlight how far these Sapphire ramp decks have come. The more common turn two play back in the really early sets, if we exerted our two ink, would have been something like Grandma Tala. Grandma Tala, when this character is banished, you may put this card into your inkwell face down and exerted. A relatively similar ability to a lot of the other cards we're going to highlight. The only difference is because it requires Grandma Tala to be banished, this is delayed value. The more updated Sapphire ramp cards that we have return immediate value, and that's really important for being able to get to our higher turns more reliably. So instead of something like a Grandma Tala, nowadays we're playing either a one jump ahead, which puts the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted, keeps your hand a little healthy, or a new character that we have in the Shimmering Skies set, which I really like, is Tipo. Tipo, when you play this character, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell, face down, and exerted. Gives us a body on board to be able to do something with, and we can continue to ramp. So we'll go ahead and remove a card that we played Tipo. I'm going to use his ability and put a card into our inkwell, face down and exerted from our hand. Next turn, we'll ready our ink. We'll draw for turn. We're at 5 cards now in our hand. Let's go ahead and ink for turn. We pretty much will be doing that every single turn. And now we've got access to 4 ink to play something. And we've got a couple different options here. It's important to note that if you do end up with a pretty sweet hand of playing able to play something on one, like a popsicle, Tipo on two, you can do it with Tipo or any other characters later on. One Jump Ahead is particularly nice just because it is an action song. So you can now sing. Tipo is a great target to be able to sing One Jump Ahead and put an additional card from your hand or from your deck into your inkwell. So we're going to play as if we only get really one option per turn to ink or to ramp. So turn 4, you could play something like a Hiram Flaversham to banish your popsicle. Hiram allows you to draw 2 cards when you banish one of your items. Maybe you find your one jump ahead by banishing the popsicle and drawing the additional 2 cards. Or if you have some of the more high value and not so easy cards to collect, like a Bell Strange but Special, during your turn, when you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. You can continue to ramp that way by putting an additional card into your inkwell from your hand. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and say that we played Bell Strange but Special, and then we put an additional card from our inkwell into our hand face down. The only difference with Bell versus something like a Tipo is it does say into your hand or into your inkwell face down, not into your inkwell face down and exerted. So let's say you had another popsicle in hand or another 1-cost card, you could go ahead and play that immediately utilizing this 1 ink. So next turn, we ready our ink that we've got 5 here. We draw for turn. You'll notice even drawing for turn here, we have 3 cards in hand. This is definitely a line that you could see with something like a Sapphire Steel deck, just because the Sapphire Steel deck does have the options to play a whole new world or something that would really would reset your hand for both you and your opponent, but more importantly you, since you are a bit low. Now, if you inked for turn to get to 6, you have access to be able to play some 6-cost cards here. At this point, the last card I'll highlight for the even ramp that would still be ramp related on a turn 6 is the new card Cusco Selfish Emperor. When you play this character, you may put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell face down and exerted. Now, that can be you or your opponent, the way that it reads. So let's say your opponent maybe has a troublesome location like a Queen's Castle that you can't get rid of. Cusco can be removal for that purpose, or something like a Fishbone Quill to stop them from ramping. Or you can continue to ramp yourself by maybe putting your popsicle into your inkwell face down and exerted. And now you've got the ability to continue to ramp even with Bell, reset your hand by playing a whole new world with almost an empty hand at this point. So that's kind of about all I'm going to highlight as far for the even ramp, but you can see some of the paths here. I think the even ramp is a bit more narrow. And as we go through the odd ramps, the odd count ramp style, I think you'll see that it is a bit more flexible, and I think the way to go going forward. So we're going to go ahead and reset our hand to 4, 6, 7. We've got 7 cards. We're going to put these just back into our deck and clear the board. So let's go ahead and assume again that we are going first. So 2, 4, 6, 7 cards in our hand. We're going to go on turn 1, ink a card. We're going to play that popsicle. The popsicle is going to move it for the popsicle, allow us to draw a card. We're going to draw that card. The next turn, we're going to draw for turn. We're going to ink a card, so we're at 2 ink. And there's a new 2-cost card out there, and I apologize, maybe Ian can add a visual in post with editing. But there's a 2-cost card that I don't have access to yet. I haven't pulled any in the Shimmering Skies cards that I've bought so far, but I think is probably the most optimal turn 2 for this odd ramping ink style, which is Chicha, Dedicated Mother. We're going to utilize Shaka, her daughter from Emperor's New Groove, in place of her, just for visualization purposes. Chicha reads, she's got support, so she can help buff some of your other units on board. But Chicha reads, during your turn, when you put a card into your inkwell, if it's the second card you put into your inkwell this turn, you may draw a card. That's going to be very easy and very common for us. If you're playing any of these ramping decks, you're putting 2 cards into your inkwell each turn. Chicha is a great way to keep refilling your hand, and I think that's why the odd ink style is going to be so potent. Is you don't have to solely rely on something like a Hiram Flaversham to be able to make it work. It really opens up the ink color combinations and some of the flexibility. So we went ahead and played Chicha on turn 2 and removed a card for playing her. Let's go ahead now on our next turn. We're going to draw a card. Let's ink for turn. And on turn 3 is where we're really going to start ramping. And this is where the flexibility really comes in. I'm going to highlight some cards that you could play here. Fishbone Quill is a great item and one of the classic items that you can play if you want to continue to go the item route, where you can exert this at any point, even the turn you've played it, to put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down. So let's go ahead and remove a card as if we played Fishbone Quill, or like we played one of these characters, Winnie the Pooh or Mickey Mouse. These are from prior sets, but also still great character ramp. Winnie the Pooh says whenever this character quests, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down. So he's going to be delayed value because you aren't going to be able to do it immediately. Quest with him, you do it on a following turn, but he is a good 3-cost character to be able to play. Or more likely, you're going to play Mickey Mouse Detective, and that's the route we're going to say that we went here, was Mickey Mouse Detective. When you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. So we already removed the card as if we played Mickey. We're going to go ahead and put the top card from our deck, which helps keep our hand healthier, instead of removing an additional card from here. We put this into our inkwell face down and exerted. Now this is where Chicha comes into to play, because Chicha says during your turn, whenever you put a second card, we inked for turn, and we inked from the Mickey Mouse Detective ability. During your turn, whenever you put a second card into your inkwell, you may draw a card. So this would allow us to then draw a card here. And now we've got a little bit of a healthier hand, and we really didn't have to deviate from our plan really in order to do so. Now, let's go ahead and ready our ink. We're going to start into the next turn. We draw a card for turn. We ink for turn. We're on turn 5. You could play something like Heart of Tafiti on turn 5, which would be utilizing 3 ink, and the ability says on turn, or you can exert this item, spend 2 to put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. Now, the advantage to playing some of these items versus a Mickey Mouse is Fishbone Quill and Heart of Tafiti. You can do these abilities repeatedly each turn as long as the item doesn't get removed or you're not banishing it with a Hiram in order to put additional cards in your hand. So Heart of Tafiti, we would be able to exert the item, spend our last 2 ink, and put a card from the top of our deck into our inkwell face down and exerted. Chicha, assuming they're still on board, will remove a card as if we played Heart of Tafiti. And Chicha's still on board, we would be able to draw another card. So you can see we've got 4 things on board. We've continued to play. We're going into our 5th turn, and we're going to have access to 7 ink. So we are outpacing our opponent if they're not playing a ramp deck as well. Our hand is still relatively healthy. Some of these new options, like Chicha, are really, really important for being able to keep a healthy hand, keep that momentum, and have brought these Sapphire Ramp decks to a whole new level. I hope you guys enjoyed this demonstration. If you have any questions, feel free to jump into our Discord. We have a Lorcana channel in there, or you can directly personal message myself or Ian, and we will be happy to answer any questions for you or bounce deck ideas, probably fine-tune the decks that you guys are building, regardless of what ink count and color. We're really enjoying the Shimmering Skies Lorcana set so far, and I hope you guys are too. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. It helps us out a lot. And we'll see you guys in the next one.